You're listening to Being Autistic. I'm your host, Shelly, and I am a 50-year-old woman sharing my experiences about what it's like to grow up knowing I was different but not knowing why, how I learned I was on the autism spectrum, and what it's like to be autistic. Hello, and welcome to episode number 8. This is called Struggles with Friendships. So I wanted to make an episode about my struggles with dealing with people, and I realized that friendships and relationships are two really big topics on their own. So what I'm going to do is just talk about friendships in this episode, and then my next episode I'm going to talk about relationships. So let's get started with the friendships. All right. So autistic people typically struggle with all sorts of social environments and dealing with people, friendships, relationships, all of that. And one of the first, I didn't really have any problems with my family as much when I was a kid. So the first time that I ever realized that I was not normal when it came to other people was when people would come over to our house. And so this isn't exactly friendships, but this sets the tone. This was the first interaction I had with other people in general when it comes to not my family. So I would hide from people when they would come over to our house. I would hide behind my mom. I would hide in my bedroom. I wouldn't talk at all. And this was like with my parents' friends and stuff. And so I remember, I don't remember this, but one of my first friendships, I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go right into my very first friendship, which was my next door neighbor. So with autistic people, we tend to make friendships with people that are almost forced upon us, like for one reason or another, they're in our lives on a regular basis, and that's just, you can't get away from them. So for me, it was my next door neighbor because she literally lived next door and she was my age. So we became friends, and so that was my first friendship. But the thing was, I quickly realized after a couple of years that she was not really accepting of me. She didn't understand things that I would do. She was always asking me, why do you do this? Why do you do that? And these were things that I learned later were stimming. So I did a lot of those weird, people think they're weird, but stimming is where you are doing a repetitive movement or a compulsory action, usually with your fingers or your hair or something part of your body. And she kept asking me, why do you keep doing that? Why are you doing that? And why do you do this? And why don't you do this? And all of her pressuring me to not do these things or to do these things, it was making me feel like I wasn't normal. That was my first experience with a person that made me feel that I was not normal. And she also learned a lot of things that I didn't learn, and I thought that was weird because we were the same age, we were in the same grade, we were always together, and she knew things that I didn't know about just, growing up. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why am I not picking up on these things? I could not figure out how to tie my shoe, I could not figure out how to ride my bike. And that friend had to teach me those things. She also had to teach me how to put makeup on when we became, 12, 13 years old. Because I'm like, what is makeup? Why do I have to wear that? That's weird. I don't know how to do that. So she helped me with that. And so, here's where that friendship changed. She would slowly start to be more friends with other people. And this was really evident in another neighborhood girl that was a couple houses down from me and her. She was also in our grade, and these two girls became closer than me and my friend. And that other girl never talked to me. She only talked to me because I was with this other girl. So that was another indication that I was not normal. And it was like that every time I hung out with a group of friends, kids around the same age. They all would become better friends with each other than me. And I was always the extra, the oddball, the one that didn't talk, the one that nobody talked to me, the one that people thought was weird, the one that people didn't want to be friends with. And so my friend, the one that was next door to me, she eventually drifted away and started hanging out with other people. And I really knew this was evident when at recess, I thought, she's my friend, let's hang out. But nope, that's not how it was. At recess, she completely ignored me and she just hung out with all of the popular girls. And then I was just alone. So I spent my recesses alone. I don't think I might have maybe talked to one or two people ever at recess, but otherwise I was just kind of hovering around the outside, trying to hide from people. I would find shadows and corners and under trees, and I would try to just be alone and not have anybody see me. So, that was my first friendship. And the other friendship that started when I was, well, this is the part that I don't remember. She claims that we were friends before I remember. And she claims that when she first came over to my house with her mom, because her mom was friends with my parents, she came over and I was hiding under my bed. I was hiding half of my body under my bed. The other half was on top of my bed. I don't remember doing this. I must have been really scared, but she said that's what I was doing when she first met me. So she was the daughter of my parents' friends. And from that point on, we all were friends and our families did things together. And so that girl became my second best friend. And we were best friends for a few years, but then, of course, that also went the same direction as the other one, where she would just suddenly have new friends. And to an autistic person who doesn't make friends easily, that's one of the worst things that can happen, because we kind of attach ourselves to the first person that will talk to us when you're a kid. And so that's what I did with this girl. And so the other one wasn't talking to me anymore. And so this one was like my new best friend. And then she slowly started to not talk to me anymore. And that was that. A couple of years of that one. And then that one moved on to more popular girls, and I never fit in with any of my friends' friends. I wanted that one friend, and the other friends thought I was weird, didn't talk to me, and I didn't talk to them. So that was just the end of that. So the next friend that I had was a couple of boys, and this was in probably middle school. So I was maybe 12, 13 years old. And these boys were easier for me to talk to. And I later learned, recently I learned that autistic people, autistic girls specifically, have an easier time being friends with boys than girls, because boys seem to be more easy to get along with. They're not as petty. They're not about drama. They're not competitive. They're not jealous. Boys are just, real. What you see is what you get, and they accept you. So I did have a couple of boys that were my friends, and they didn't last very long either, of course. And I think this was actually more of a case of drifting apart in high school, because when maybe ninth or 10th grade, we didn't really talk as much. We grew apart because in high school there's more kids, there's just more and more of everything. And so that was that. And then in high school, I did make another best friend that was a female. And this time, so the way that this one worked out was we were sitting at a table in one of our classes, a group table. And so the ones that were at that table kind of became friends. And that's, like I said before, we make friends easier when we're kind of forced to it. Like, we're forced to talk to the same people every day. Otherwise, this would have never happened. So this girl started talking to me every day, and I was like, oh, yay, I have another friend now. And so this girl, we were friends, best friends for about well, 3 years again. They'd never last long. And she had another friend that was really good friends with her, and I ended up being friends with that girl as well, which is rare because normally when I meet my best friend's other friends, they don't like me. So this is one of the few situations where I did become friends with her friend. So it was the three of us. However, that's about where the good news ended there because, yes, I was friends with both of them, but this is where the problem comes in with a group of three people, with autistic people especially, and with me for sure. Like, this was a situation where I didn't, should I say, I still wasn't quite as, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say is. I was the oddball still. I was still the third wheel because these two girls were, dare I say, cooler than me. They ended up doing things that most teenage girls do and I never did, like dating boys, smoking weed, you know, all of the things that teenagers do. And I didn't do those things. So I was like the nerd, the average person that was like, you know, just there. And so they became better friends than I was with either of them. And these two friends ended up, I mean, they were 15, 16 years old, so I really can't blame them right now because teenagers do bad things. But they treated me pretty badly when they got together, and it was a 2 against 1. So they, you know, autistic people are very trusting and a little bit gullible, a little bit naive, and so they used me for things like driving them around. I got my license before they did. They were actually a grade below me. So they used me to drive them around, and one time they said, let's go for a drive. I'll tell you where to go. Just go where I tell you. And so I did, and I just let them lead me, and soon we were leaving town going somewhere I'd never been. And I said, where are we going? Let's go back. Tell me how to get back. And she's like, okay, go here and go there and go there. And I'm like, this is not leading us back home. Where are we going? And the more suspicious I got, they did not answer me. They just said, keep going this way. About an hour and a half later, we ended up in a city that I've never been to, of course, because I was only 16. And it was dark by this time, and I was starting to be nervous that my mom was going to find out I was gone and couldn't get a hold of me, whatever. Well, of course, this was before cell phones, but whatever. So turns out they were getting weed. They were buying weed and needed me to drive them there to get it. And I did kind of slowly realize what was going on, but I felt awkward about it because I didn't know what weed was. I knew it was something bad, and I didn't like that my friends forced me to go there, but they were my friends. They were the only ones that I had, so that was that. And then around the same time, these same two friends also borrowed my car to drive around for a little while I was at work, and they didn't come back, and they still didn't come back, and 5 or 6 hours later they finally came back, but they came back in somebody else's car, and they told me that my car was dead. They wrecked my car. They told me that they drove it down in a ravine kind of, and they couldn't get out, and they did get out, but the transmission blew and the green transmission fluid sprayed everywhere, and it was dead. It had to be towed. So that sucked. Like, ugh, that was my first car, and I loved that car, and it made me very sad. And these same two friends, another thing that they did to me was they knew that I kept my door, well, we at my house kept our door unlocked because I had actually, now that I'm remembering, I think they knew where the key was. They got a key and got in the house before they knew nobody was going to be there. And they came in and stole some of my cassettes. So back in the 90s, actually this would be 80s, the late 80s, it was cassettes. And they stole a bunch of them. And I didn't find out until I was at one of their houses, and I'm like, hey, here's the cassette that I'm missing. And she goes, oh, yeah, I just borrowed it. You can have it back. Great. So she stole it and said that she just borrowed it. And, I slowly realized that these two friends were treating me like crap, and still I hung out with them because they were all I had. And so the thing was, like, after high school, we did lose touch and didn't really hang out as much anymore. Although one of them did work with me for a couple years, so we did still hang out a couple years after that. But I mean, then she matured and didn't do bad things to me anymore. Oh, this same friend also stabbed me with a pencil on the school bus. So there was that. So I was treated like crap by my friends, if I even was able to keep them around longer than a couple years. So that was my friendships all the way through school. So after I graduated, I was working at a factory, and I made friends there. I also made some friends at my other job that was part-time. Actually, that first job that I had working at McDonald's was part-time, and I did make a friend there that I'm actually still friends with today, but it's a guy, so that would explain it, because it's so much easier for me to be friends with guys. So yeah, I've had that friend since that time, and that's been like, what, 30 years now. So that's my longest running friendship, and I think it is because it's a guy, because I don't think any female would ever stay friends with me that long. It just doesn't work that way for autistic people. Of course there's going to be exceptions, but this is how my life pattern has been. So I did make some more friends, some female, some male, on and off throughout the years at my jobs, and none of them would last super long time. There was actually one job I had, well, actually that factory, that second job I had, my first full time actually. And so I had a couple of friends there that I met, and one of them was nice to me most of the time until she would hang out with another friend. And then, of course, it was the same situation as the two from high school. They would kind of pick on me, and I don't know how to put this into words, but there was so many times where I would be just saying something, just going about my business, being myself, and they would laugh and look at each other and laugh and say, they would say mean things to me that probably adults shouldn't say to other adults, because we were in our 20s and 30s, but they would say things like, how do you get through life without somebody helping you? And when she said that, I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't understand the question. Of course, now, 20 years later, I completely understand the question, because I was autistic and didn't know it, and most autistic people struggle with life. And a lot of them need support in many ways. And since I didn't know I was autistic, obviously I wasn't getting any support. So this same girl she nicknamed me Freak. So she called me Freak as if it were my name. And, most of the time when she talked to me, it was like laughing, like condescendingly, like, you're so weird. You're so strange. But, again, they were the only girls that were my friends from that job. So I was still under the mindset of, I need all the friends I can get, so I will take whoever talks to me. So let's move on to, after those two girls, I moved away from them because I didn't have that job forever. And I made some more friends on and off over the years at other jobs, but of course nothing ever stuck. So maybe the next significant friendship I had was someone that I met like 4 or 5 years ago at a music festival. And that was actually the first time I've made a friend without it being forced on me, like without it being either a neighbor, a family friend, or a classmate that I was kind of forced into being near. So this friend was someone that I met at music festivals, which now I'm jumping way ahead now to my 40s, late 40s. So I became friends with that girl, and we're still friends, but we only see each other pretty much at music festivals. She doesn't live in the same state. But I, I think back on my history of with my female friends, and I'm like, none of them have ever lasted. They've all ganged up on me with other people, treating me like crap or just making it known that I was not one of them, unless one of them was alone. If I'm hanging out with a girl by ourselves, it seems okay. However, they still don't stick around. They usually end up, hanging out with other people more. They always have other best friends. And here's the thing, I called all of these girls my best friends at one time, but I soon realized that I was probably not their best friend. Maybe it's for a short time, but they always had other best friends or better best friends. So that's always a common theme with me, and probably with a lot of other female autistics. So yeah, right now as it stands, I pretty much only have the one friend, that the guy that I've known for 30 years, that I see on a regular basis, because honestly at this point he's more like a brother, because we have gone through some times where he didn't talk to me, and those times I did not understand why. I still can't explain why he quit talking to me a couple times, but then he always, came back, and so it's kind of more like a brother sister thing now. It's not like I lost my train of thought. I completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, so yeah, it's like a brother sister thing. Like, he would do things for me to help me, but here's where I still feel like I don't have this meaningful, fulfilling connection with him, or anyone really. So autistic people, we always feel misunderstood. We always feel like we're not quite connecting with others, especially people that are neurotypical. Neurotypical people have different brains than us. So the thing with this friendship with this guy is it's good for many things. I can count on him to be there for me if I ever get stranded, or if I have a problem. But the bad side of it is, to this day, I'm not even sure if he knows that I'm autistic. I have talked about this on my Facebook page many, many times, and he is so far has not commented or liked those posts. So it's one of those subjects that I don't know how to bring up, because I'm pretty sure he's seen my posts about it, and if he's not liking them and he's not commenting on them, he must either he must just not want to talk about it with me. So I'm just, whatever. He's known me for 30 years. He's got to know that I'm weird. He's got to know that I'm not like other people. And so maybe he just doesn't want to admit that he knew it all along, or whatever, but whatever. So we just haven't talked about it. So there's a lot of things about being autistic that I struggle with when it comes to him. Like, I have my special interests, which are, things we get obsessed about, our favorite things in life. And he doesn't really share those with me. We both like music, but we usually don't like the same bands. So I can't really get excited about my music to him, because he just doesn't respond or whatever. So that's that. And he has a partner, and he's always with us too. So it's them two and me. And again, it's the third wheel kind of thing. It's always, I don't know how this always happens, how the universe always makes this come out like this, but it's always me and my best friend and their other person. So I'm the third person. I'm the third wheel. I'm the one that's like not in a relationship, and I'm usually not involved in the conversations that they have, because since they're together, they will have conversations together. And then I'm just kind of sitting there listening. And so I'm not blaming them, because when people are a couple, they just have more to talk about with each other. So that's the situation with my current social life. It's pretty much hanging out with those two. when it comes to hanging out with people, I definitely don't have the energy to hang out with people a lot. And they don't live in the same town. So driving to their house, and that's another thing. Like 99.9% of the time I'm driving to their house. They have rarely came to my house. So that's just another example of where I feel like I'm not as important, I guess. But that could just be an autistic mindset because I'm just so used to it my whole life, just being the third wheel, being the one that's always left out or the extra one. And I kind of want to go back a little bit here. So this friend, this guy that I'm talking about, we've been friends for 30 years, except for those 2 times where we didn't talk, but that was only for a little bit. But anyway, he would have a lot of friends, and I also hung out with those friends. But we all hung out as a group, and the central focus was my friend. So he was my best friend. They all were his friend. And so when we all got together, he was the focus. And, he was the one that called everybody for the most part. We all went to his house for the most part. Everybody talked to him, and he talked to them. And I was always the one on the sidelines. Like, there was a couple girls in there, and of course they didn't ever treat me like they wanted to be my friend. I tried to hang out with them without him like just me and them, but that never worked out. They clearly didn't want to be my friend. And at the time I didn't know why, but now I do. There's just a thing that autistic girls and women have a hard time with other girls and women. So that was that. I've met a lot of people in my life, but most of them just don't stick. Most of them are only in my life because of the person that I'm friends with, but it never, other people just never took to me. So, I guess I'm grateful that I do have the friends that I have had, because I know that there's a lot of autistic people out there that struggle even more than I do with friendships. They either have none at all, or they have none at all. So like I've always had at least one friend, except for there were some times where I didn't, maybe where I was in between stages, between the 2 friends. And I remember one time when I was in junior high, I remember being in a bathroom stall by myself. Well, of course I was by myself, but I went off on my own and I hid in the bathroom stall. I did this a lot. This was a common thing for me. So I was in the bathroom and I'm like, I'm going to pray for friends. I'm going to pray for my own little circle of friends that loves me and treats me good and doesn't leave me. But, it's hard to say whether or not that's happened because I don't have a group of friends. I have one friend that has a partner that I hang out with, and then I have one friend that I met at music festivals that I see maybe 2 or 3 times a year because she lives too far away. But yeah, I shouldn't complain at all because I know there's a lot of people out there that have no friends at all, or maybe they've only had one friend ever in their whole life. And my heart goes out to them because I know how much it sucks and I know how much struggle it is to feel connected to people. And this leads me to the next thing I wanted to say was, even though I've had these friends, I never, ever, even currently now, don't feel that connection with someone like I see in other people. I'll be out in public and I'll see friends, and it's clear that they're best friends, and it's clear that they've been friends for a long time, and it's clear that they have this amazing connection. And I mean, yeah, my friend that I've had for 30 years, of course we care about each other, but there's still a lot of moments where I feel like I'm more lonely being around him than I am when I'm alone, because I don't feel like I have that. I want someone that loves the same things that I love, which is a big thing for autistic people. I want someone that, we have like inside jokes together, and we just have this closeness. I don't think I've ever had that. I always feel, I think the reason why is because all of these friends have other people in their lives. And for me, I'm just alone and I don't have a partner at the time. Right now, I don't. I have before, but it's just a weird situation to be in when you're always the single one, usually the single one, and other people are always in partners, or other people are always a pair of people. And that's where it ends. That's where it's like, nope, it doesn't work. I can't be equal friends with three people because they always are closer than they are with me. And they always, well, I shouldn't say always, but many times they have, made it obvious that I'm not the one that they would choose if they had to choose one of us. So that's what it is. I've never had someone that chose me, except for, romantic guys, yes. In romantic relationships, I've had people that wanted to be with me, but that's what I'm going to go into in the next episode. So I guess this is a really good time to end this one. I think I've talked about all of my my main friends. And I just, the central theme for me of the friendships, if I could sum it up in one sentence or two sentences, is struggle, not the right connection, always being the third wheel, and always being the one that, yeah, maybe my best friends like me, but I don't think they've ever considered me their best friend because they always move on to other best friends or the one that was always their best friend to start with. And I just didn't know it because I thought, they're friends with me. They must be my best friend. So, yeah, I really hope in my future, even though I'm already 50, I hope I can somehow find that connection with someone where it's just me and them. They don't have other best friends that they like more. I want someone to be my equal. And that's a common struggle with autistic people, finding their equal, finding someone that completely accepts them and understands them. I don't think I've ever been understood, honestly. So, needless to say, I spend a lot of time on Facebook because that's where I connect with other autistic people. So I'm in a lot of autistic groups, and that is honestly the only time in my life that I have felt understood and found people that going through the same things that I go through. So, I don't know how to meet friends in real life that are autistic because it's very hard. Maybe it's the location. Maybe I do live in a small town that's like an hour away from big towns. But I feel like, there should be some sort of a support thing, a support group in every state, at least every city, that's kind of asking a lot, but it would be really helpful. I'm sure a lot of you listening would agree if you struggle with making friends. So this is why we turn to the internet, because we don't have that connection with people in real life. We have special interests that we want to talk about, and it's very hard to find people with those same interests except for on the internet. That's been pretty much, I think now that I'm thinking about it, without exception, that's been where I've found my people that are into the same thing that I am. It's very hard in real life, because in real life, you're working with coworkers, and these are the people you have to pick from. You might have one coworker, you might have 100 coworkers, but the odds are very slim of finding that person that accepts you, that likes you, that wants to spend time with you, that likes the same things that you like. It's very hard. So, yeah, I'm going to end this now because I think I've talked about everything I needed to say. Stay tuned for the next episode where I will talk about my struggles with romantic relationships. Thank you so much for listening.